How's it going out there? It's November 4th. And I'm Frank Curzio, host of the Wall Street Unplugged podcast, where I break down headlines and tell you what's really moving these markets. So big news here. The Eagles are in first place in the NFC East. Great news, right? That's what everybody wants to talk about today. In all seriousness, what a night. And I'm not saying that in a good way. I mean, actually, the night was pretty much a complete waste of everyone's time, taking hundreds of millions of people tuning in, right? That's what they were doing, tuning into this thing. And we are taping this at 1 p.m. on November 4th, Wednesday, one day after the election, and we still don't have a clear-cut winner. So, for me, I was up to 3 a.m. I think Biden came out and had his speech first, which is pretty cool. And then Trump didn't speak to 3 a.m. And that speech was him talking about how he thinks the system's corrupt. As far as he's concerned, he won the election. But I think he knew that we were going to see a major shift in Michigan, Wisconsin overnight. I mean, state that he was basically winning pretty handily when everyone went to bed last night, right? Wisconsin by 4%, Michigan by a large amount, Pennsylvania is still up, but you know, again, a lot of votes need to be cast still, or not cast, but counted. And all of this reversed when a lot of us woke up today. But for me, I have to ask, why did so many states, if you're looking at Wisconsin, Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, just stop counting votes around 11 p.m. yesterday? It was kind of weird. I'm not talking about counting the mail-in ballots, though, but even the in-person votes that are done electronically. And everyone knows the date of the election, right? You have tons of volunteers. Even Florida was able to finish its count for the most part on Election Day, November 3rd. But this is America. We have the greatest technology in the world. We have lots of smart people, yet there's not like a few guys at MIT or Harvard that know how to count. Because what we have right now, no matter who wins the election, no matter who wins, it's not going to feel legit by either side. I mean, one group is going to think they were cheated the way it is right now. So look, there's a lot of topics we need to discuss here, like, which I'm surprised I'm going to say, is about who may win the election, why the polls are completely useless, and most important, what a Biden win, along with a Republican Senate, which that's the odds as of now. Again, 1 p.m. on Wednesday, that's the odds. What's probably going to happen. That's the favorite. But what this means also for your portfolio. Now, I'm bringing my buddy, my friend, all-star analyst, portfolio manager. I'm going to keep going here. Proud chef, expert fisherman, most brilliant guy I know, who's also the host of the Disciplined Investor podcast. And that is my buddy, Andrew Horowitz. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, what's up, Frank?
So, was that the right
let me just say something, Frank.
Get everything?
Yeah, you got everything right. The fisherman, doing a lot of smoking lately. You know what your problem is, Frank?
Yeah.
You make too much sense. That's the problem.
I know.
I mean, you know, the reality is that unfortunately we're in a situation where it's the complexities of what's going on. I mean, let's just toss out the idea that 2020 is a big mistake that was made in the creation of the calendar. It should have just gone, like, you don't have a 13th floor on an elevator, right? You know, you should have just gone from 2019 to 2021, because this year is a disaster in every way. And this whole election fiasco, which we knew was going to be relatively close, and we knew there was going to be problems due to the fact of the way voting had to be taken, place this year with all the mail-ins, not a lot of people wanting to go to the polls. But man, it's just, you figure they got years and years of technology advancements, and we're still down to this kind of horrible level of last minute contests and questions. And just, it's really a very disturbing from the standpoint of being a citizen of the country, where we just can't get this straight.
Why do we even have a date for? It's supposed to be November 3rd, right? And again, regardless who wins, the fact that people are waking up and we still don't know, which, by the way, as of right now, the most important state, you know what the most important state is right now? It's Nevada.
What is it going to be? What is it going to be?
It's Nevada.
Nevada.
Because if Trump loses Nevada, it's pretty much a done deal. If he wins Nevada, and figuring he wins Georgia, and if we figure he wins North Carolina, then he only needs Pennsylvania. Doesn't care about Michigan and Wisconsin, which it looks like he's losing right now. So nobody's really talking about Nevada, which I'm surprised, because if he loses that, And the latest news about 3 minutes before we came on is he's definitely going to do a recount, I believe, in Wisconsin. But we're talking about 5 states. This is a lot different than 2000, right? I mean, one state.
They're close. It's so close. I mean, 10,000, 30,000 votes in a state is extremely close.
Yeah. So what are your
and
thoughts
it's under
on
less than 1%?
So
it's interesting.
Go ahead.
So here's what's interesting. The conventional wisdom going into this was, okay, Biden's going to win, markets are going to crash, right? That was kind of where it was at. There was 3 different scenarios that really were built. The first one was, nothing changes, right? President Trump is reelected, the Senate stays Republican, and we have a House that is going to be remaining as Democrat controlled. Okay, that was number one. Nothing changes. Everything kind of goes along smoothly, kind of as we've been going on. The next one was a Biden win with a blue wave. And that was going to mean a significant amount of changes. We're going to have tax rollbacks of the changes, regulatory rollbacks. We're going to have potential a hit squad on the healthcare companies. Marijuana stocks will do really well because Harris is a big proponent of that, and all the things that were going on with that. And the third one was Biden with a split Congress is what it's looking like right now. And what that means is that any of the things that was really worrying the markets, like the increase in the taxes, the possible change on the corporate tax rate, the estate tax rate, the issue with the step up in basis, the potential for raising individual taxes is off the table. But so is the potential for a massive infrastructure deal. So it's a very confusing circumstance. But one thing we do know that the first 2 scenarios, whether it was going to be Trump with no change at all or Biden with a split Congress, was going to be kind of good for the market. Why is the market rallying like this is a mystery. I got to be honest with you. It's a total mystery why it's moving up so much, except for the fact that obviously the large cap growth are up 5% today in the mid part of the day. That's led by many of the technology companies that are going to do pretty well if, in fact, Biden is not able to get any kind of tax increase in. So that was a big issue there. But we're still talking about the initiatives that they do have that they will try to get through is something that we have to contend with. It's just, you got to wonder why everybody's so jubilant over this. I have no answer.
The market was going up. I thought it was going up because Trump was closing in on the polls, right? Because to me, Biden was going out there, even when you see with his rallies, he'd be like, hey, right, I'm going to win, and people beeping their horns, And
Lady Gaga did an event for him, and it was like, I wish I was invited. There was like 50 people there. It was like a private event for Lady Gaga. So it was a whole different scenario between the Trump rallies and the Biden, handshakes.
Yeah, and I mean, I really didn't get it. I didn't understand why the market was going up, and people say, well, it looks like Biden's going to win. And let's go into that, because let's go into the polls, which is really important, because this is a real joke.
Oh.
I mean, these guys were a disaster. So I'm going to bring something up here. I'm going to start this out. Just NBC News polling, they polled the average, had Biden up 7 percentage points over Trump, right? He's going to probably win by, this is a popular vote, 2%. Real Clear Politics, general election, 6.5 points, 538, which, one of the most accurate in 2016, still got Trump wrong. They gave Biden 8.4% advantage. But now when you're looking on November 2nd heading in, Florida, average polls had Trump losing by 2.5%. He's going to win by at least 3%. Double the margin from 2016, and more than 5% of the difference, right? I thought the polling errors were like 3%, 3.5%. Michigan, average poll had the Biden win by 8%. He's not going to win by 8%. He may win.
Right.
Texas had Trump up by 1% on average. They thought they were going to win, and yet I think Biden won the fewest counties in Texas as Democrat in decades. Ohio was in favor of Biden by 1%. Trump is up 8%. I mean, Pennsylvania.
I mean, there's a long way of you saying these polls suck.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I'm just going through these numbers, which, they had Wisconsin.
I don't know where they get their,
10%.
First of all, the polling companies are toast. If there was a polling company that was publicly traded, I'd short it.
Do you know how much it costs for these polls to be? I mean, there's tons of them, but why are they so wrong? Why should we believe them? What's wrong with the system? Because a lot of people even base their decisions on these polls and say, wow, why go even vote for Trump, or why, whatever it is. But it has influence.
Well, but it's also the money in advertising that's spent to try to pop up some polling areas that aren't strong. That's a big issue. You have, your campaign schedule that goes along with that. There's a lot of things that go with it. But I've got to tell you something. The polls are only as good as the information that you get out of it. And it's kind of like a situation right now that I look at similarly with analysts and economists. I mean, can you tell me why we should be following any analyst on any stock right now, or any kind of economist on? They're so off. I mean, they're so off. It's either the data that's being input is really poor, the analysts just are terrible at what they do, or we're in a bit of a different circumstance, particularly with companies, where it's just impossible to really gather that kind of information up. And you have to wonder, when you look at like other polls like confidence, right? You look at the various University of Michigan confidence rating. Are these even accurate? And I think it's a flaw in just the data collection process, as well as the analysis. And maybe it's I don't know, a different type of person that's going to be answering the questions. Maybe there's a lack of truthfulness in some of this for some reason. There was that, closet Trump voter phenomena that we heard about, but I don't know. There's no reason. It's a good guide, but it's not something to hang your hat on. Just like we saw the estimates. What was it? 83% of companies beat estimates last quarter. 83%. Frank, what's the usual? 60, 65%? So I think we have to take all this with a grain of salt. I think part of right now with some of this is, of course, the strangeness of 2020. But the polls really been off of the last two elections, and it may be a Trump phenomena that's involved, because they were kind of okay before that. We can put some reliability in it, but I don't know what's the point anyway of the polls. Let me ask you this. Let me throw this back at you. Yeah. Aside from where you're going to advertise and you're going to campaign, and for the politicians, what's the point of the polls otherwise?
I don't know. I understand internal polls where you could say, hey, listen, we're losing in these counties, but it's internal. But to make these public, right, it's only to influence people's decisions, I would think, right?
I would think so. Maybe it's good for the betting sites that now you can bet on anything. We could bet on the under over, how long this interview is going to be. I'm sure there's something on some site somewhere where it's going to be, or, it's going to be, kind of those things that are now bettable, where there's something on it. Obviously, those companies are probably paying for the information to create the odds to then put it out so they can, do the work to make sure they're not going to get scalped on any of this. But I don't know what the purpose of the polls are, unless it's just a talking point for the news. I don't know. And for the campaigns themselves.
Yeah. I mean, look, when I'm looking at what's going on with Vegas, this is the first time where they really had this wrong. I mean, right now they have, I think, Biden over 70% winning. They had him at, I think, 68 to Statham, actually 72 at 10 in the morning. Mm-hmm. Then they had him pretty much in the 60s. Then at midday, they had him down to 28%. I'm talking about
it's unbelievable.
11 o'clock last night. And now he's at 70%. So you never see, these are people betting with money, right? That's why you trust it, because they're putting millions, sometimes millions of dollars. To see that flip back and forth, it's pretty surprising, I guess, right? I mean, even they didn't know.
There is so much money sloshing through the system right now due to just all sorts of reasons, right? Whether it's the stimulus program, where it's low interest rates, whatever you want to call it. I just think people that have money are just kind of like saying, well, you know what? If I run out, I'll get more. There's going to be another stimulus program, or I'll figure a way to make money. It's a very, great time. And I'm not sure that's a really a good commentary on the long-term opportunity for a growth in the economy. If people are just being rather, I don't know, just, negligent with their spending habits. And I'm not sure that the people that are betting have all the data, or they just want something to do. I don't know about you. I don't really bet on sports, but sometimes I do. And the reason I do it is so I'm more engaged. I have more of a desire to watch it. And sometimes, like, through the football season in years past, I'm like, whatever the game. But if I bet on it, even $10, to be honest with you, I feel like I got to watch the game. It's more exciting to me to be involved in it for money. And our country over the last number of years has really been focusing on our purses and our pocketbooks and our wallets more than anything else. And I think that's a big sign of what's going on, with those kinds of betting sites. I'm not sure if those are anything. It is a phenomenon. These have come into play, like even weekend market betting sites where you can bet on the stock markets over the weekend, right? You've seen these. So, but there's not a big pool of people doing this. And I don't know. I don't think this is the gambling part of all this. We know what happens. Casinos are not built on the winners, right? They're built on the losers. And those casinos are pretty big. And I think that, it's house favored and it's built that way. And it's a great business. So it excites people. It gets them. Everybody wants to win. Listen, if people walk into a casino, Frank, you've been into a casino, right, Frank?
Of course.
And you walk in the floor and you see those people putting the quarters in that machine that goes like, you know what I'm saying? And they're like, they think they're going to win, or the people that think they're going to push the button and it's going to go right through that hole for that wad of $100 bills. They never win. But the excitement of just sticking those quarters in is just, they can't stop.
No. And believe it or not, talking about the gambling aspect, there's 25 states now. I think there was 3 that approved gambling. I'm not too sure which one they are. I mean, I think it was Louisiana and a 2 others. But now that's 25 states that allow some form of legalized gambling, which, again, that and marijuana, how all these states with COVID and everything and people moving out of the major areas is going to generate revenue. That's another story. But I want to go one more thing to election before we go into what this means for everyone's portfolio, because I'm going to bring this up really quick so you could see it as well, because people are probably going to ask, all right, what's going to happen in the coming days? So, I mean, we know right now what switched here was Wisconsin, and right now it's 239 to 213, right, for Trump. Right. And I'm doing for those of you just on iTunes watching this, we're also taping this on video, but I'm going to break it down for everybody. But if you look at Trump, this is why I said Nevada's the most important, because if he wins, or let's go to Georgia, assume that he's going to win Georgia and North Carolina.
But look at you. You're like the CNN guys.
Oh, that guy's great. What's the guy, King?
Is he great? I don't think he's slept in weeks. He hasn't slept in weeks.
I can tell you, they tried to do like the Fox thing back and forth, man. It didn't even work. Like they were light years behind that guy. That guy knows every county. So look, if we go here and we assume that this is going to be Wisconsin and Michigan, right, are going to be blue. So now it's important because if Trump loses Nevada but happens to win Pennsylvania, he's up, but they're going to count a lot of Democrats, and a lot of people think it's going to favor them, but he's up a lot right now. So if you click this, he's at 264. This is Nevada here. So he needs Nevada to win. If he doesn't have Nevada, that goes to Biden. He's done. So Nevada right now is the most important part, and nobody's really talking about it, which is interesting. Now,
what about Alaska? Well, you missed Alaska down
there. Alaska is kind of 3, but not really
3. Yeah,
and right now, as of Alaska, I think it's Trump is up. It's favoring him, but that's really not going to make a big deal. But let me ask you this, Andrew: Biden win. That's what it looks like based on the odds. The Vegas,
right?
And we have the Senate is going to be controlled. It's going to be maintained by Republicans, which is pretty much a good scenario because I think for the stock market, anyway, what Republicans have all the branches, again, total control. I think it gets pretty crazy with some of these extreme measures. Are you worried about the market and what we're going to see with stocks? Because this could actually take months if they're going to recount some of these things. They're going to go to Supreme Court. What's going to happen to stocks? And does it matter? Because the Senate was very, very important, where I think people think the stimulus is going to get passed and we're going to be okay.
I mean, I think that generally there was, this is first of all, let's go back to 2016. The pattern that we're seeing right now, which was a down move the 2 weeks prior to the 2016 election, coming down to the 50-day moving average for the S&P 500. This time, down the 200-day moving average for the S&P 500, popped up 2 or 3 days in advance of the election. On election day, it popped. It's almost identical. Now, the difference is the S&P 500 didn't get down to the 200-day moving average, but the Dow Jones Industrial Average did. And we're seeing just an outsized rally and everything. As a matter of fact, overnight, when we had these numbers, it did look like the Dow Jones was going to be in problematic zone due to the potential for, they're going to attack healthcare, and it may be rough on some of the banks and all that. And there's all sorts of concerns. I mean, we don't even know if this talk about him putting in Elizabeth Warren as Treasury Secretary, what that would do, right? We don't know who the makeup of the cabinet. We don't know the makeup of the Federal Reserve, who's going to be involved in that. I mean, who knows if he puts like Warren in charge of the Federal Reserve? Ouch. So the thing is that it's a very difficult time. And let me just say one other thing. Back in 2000, year 2000, when we had the election that was contested due to the hanging chads. Were you living down here back then in 2000?
In 2000? No, I wasn't in Florida, no.
Right. So I was a Florida resident. We had this hanging chads. We all hung our heads. We're like, oh, it's Florida again. It's screwing everything up, But into the end of the year, the markets lost about 7%. 7%. So we have a situation that you have the possibility that this goes on and it gets contested and it goes back and forth, and possibly then you have to ask, okay, so what if it does go back and forth? What if right now we just exchange Biden for Trump or Trump for Biden? Is there any change to the underlying? I don't see it. I mean, there are different initiatives. We know that Biden is probably going to try to come up with an infrastructure plan. He's probably going to try to come up with a tax plan, but the probability is it's going to be blocked by the Senate unless maybe some of the people in the Senate say, well, we don't have to follow the president anymore, or we're, because if we don't, he's going to name call us out on that. I don't think Biden's going to be doing that, as the tweet storms that Trump did. So maybe they'll be a little bit more relaxed and able to make good policy. But I don't see much of a difference here between the two. I think it's really all about, when are we going to have the next stimulus? What's the size and scope of the stimulus? And what's going to happen in terms of the pandemic? Now, the question that a lot of people ask is, if Biden comes in, is he going to shut down the economy? Mm-hmm. Because we have a significant rise in the coronavirus case count. And however we want to discuss that, we can. But just from the statistics that we know, this is what's being reported, right? There's a rise, I think, over 50,000 hospitalizations now and all this other stuff. Now, whether we can say it's right, it's wrong, whether the statistics are wrong, this is what the numbers are for the moment. So is he going to shut down the economy? Is he going to shut down and put stay-at-home orders or put partials or curfews? I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he has the ability to do that. I think it's the individual states. Now, they may be a recommendation. They may be an attempt to do a national mask mandate. I don't know how that's going to hurt the economy. It doesn't seem likely that could hurt the economy. It just may have a lot of people all pissed off they have to wear a mask. But I don't necessarily think that there's a significant difference, because either one, whether it's President Trump that gets in or Biden, we're going to get the stimulus. That is what the markets are focusing in on. They want finality in this election. I think there's a relief rally of a giant exhale of, it's over, thank God, or close to over. We know that it's beyond the date. But the VIX dropped from like 35 or something like that down to like 28 and a half. We got the Dow Jones up 700 points. We got the large cap growth up 5%. We got the small caps actually making some headway to the upside when they were down all day. Everything seems to be going okay. Even some of the names that were problem. I mean, some of the gun stocks and stores that sell are a little bit down. Some of the retailers that are probably most affected by stimulus are a little bit lower, because if there was going to be a blue wave, they think that there's going to be a big amount of stimulus and this is going to be a bit more restrained. I think the markets, I'm hoping that the markets can kind of get a little bit beyond this. We know eventually there's going to be a president. Eventually there'll be a presidential pick, and then we'll just have business as usual without the tweets.
One is, if Trump loses and decides not to tweet anymore, what is everyone?
Well, he's not going to decide not to.
But say if he does, what's going to happen to CNBC and MSNBC? They're not going to know what to do with themselves. What about Seth Meyers and all these people? Everything is Trump. Every book that's on the New York Times bestseller list, whether they like him or not, is Trump. It's kind of going to be weird if Biden wins, not having him. But I know it'll be tweet storms, and he's not going to go down without a fight, even if they declare him the loser. I think we all know he's just going to go a little crazy. But let's talk. Well,
the problem for Trump is there's a totally different problem for Trump, aside from the fact that he's going to get a major ding to his self-image, right, and to his self-worth, and feeling that he lost. He'll make it. Listen, we know his personality. He's going to make it look like there was some kind of a scam, there's some kind of scandal involved in this, and then he'll move on. The question is going to be, though, what's his future going to hold if some of these lawsuits from New York and all that start to pop up, and he's an ordinary citizen without pardonabilities. So we'll see who he pardons and what his thinking is on the way out, if that's the case. Yeah. I think that he was very good for the markets in that he was a major cheerleader constantly. Joe Biden's a little bit more of a Debbie Downer. I think that's unquestionable. Mm-hmm. A lot slower pace. I don't see Biden playing golf as much. Just saying. I think Biden will replace the amount of time that Donald Trump played golf with naps.
I
Probably,
think. I
you
mean,
know.
he's going to be over 80, right? I mean, by the time the 4 years is up, it's pretty
Yep.
scary because I know why they didn't want to do too many events. I mean, it wasn't just you're picking on him with some of the gaffes. I mean, it was like every day he was just, and you were looking at it going, again, as someone who is an undecided voter, as someone who cares about, you're going to be the leader of the free world, you want to make sure that, you could have that job. And I think he can, but it was just the more he was out there, it was kind of crazy where Trump,
I don't think this vote. I don't, Frank. I don't think this vote was anything about. Oh my God, I love Biden and what he's doing.
No.
I don't think that's that was not the vote.
Yeah.
The vote was I don't want Trump. That was the vote, or I want Trump. Either one, right? It was hey, I want to vote for Trump, or I don't want to vote for Trump. That's it. That was the whole vote.
Yeah, no, I agree. So let's assume that Biden, what he campaigned on, that he's going to take a more conservative approach. To me, that's not factored in. And this isn't just like what he was saying, because we have now New York City, San Francisco, Chicago, Massachusetts rolling back. They're rolling back, even though if you're outside the danger zone, which means if you're over 70 or if you have underlying condition, the chance of you dying from COVID is less than 0.6%. And it goes lower every day, even though we get more tests, more people are going out there. Obviously, COVID cases are going to rise. We know that. It's fine. But we all know people who had COVID. Most of them are okay. If we decide to close the economy, because as Jeffries does a great tracker that I posted on my Twitter account at Frank Curzio that shows everything in terms of traffic, like whether it's foot traffic, whether it's transit, and all these things for the week over week, it was getting in terms of the percentage of the economy that's open. And it was, it's around 80% when you include everything. And it's been going up, right, week by week. Now you're seeing downticks. This definitely isn't factored in GDP. And people say, well, it's the states that matter. I get it. But remember, all the Republicans are together and all the Democrats are together. And if you don't follow the top guy, he's not going to have you back when it comes to election time. So do you think we could see a lot of these states roll back some of these requirements? Because I could tell you, people who own businesses, they're done. They don't want to, they're ready to work. They want to get out there. They know the statistics. If that happens, does that worry you when it comes to the markets?
It worries me from a lot of aspects. And I think that that's why they need to really get some stimulus ready before they do so. It's interesting that we saw that Germany's rolling back, UK shut down for 30 days. We see France in bad shape. Israel shut down for 3 weeks a few weeks back. El Paso, Texas is like the first to really kind of come down on a stay-at-home order. You're seeing a lot of things around the world that are questioning why this is happening. We can get into the whole discussion of, how are you counting deaths anyway, by the way? So the UK, the way they count deaths is, I believe it's if you have COVID and within 28 days later, I think it's 28, you die, it's a COVID death. So in other words, if I get COVID and 14 days later, and let's say I'm asymptomatic, 14 days later, I get hit by a bus, COVID death.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what this is. There's a couple of theories. It's the New World Order on the Build Back Better concept. And this is a kind of a globalist viewpoint of trying to take control of everybody. And maybe that's something. And I just don't think that we're going to see a shutdown unless things get really, really bad. But at the end of the day, Frank, the fact is we're closer to the potential vaccine. And even if we don't have a vaccine, a lot of the treatments are a lot better. And even if the treatments aren't a lot better, the understanding of the disease is a lot better. And therefore, it's being treated, even without some of these other interventions, a lot better. At first, people didn't know what the hell it was. So you didn't go to the doctor. And by the time it progressed, you're in bad shape. Now, if you, I don't know, you oh my God, I got something, right? Or my throat's dry. Oh my God. I have a cough. Everybody, if I'm anywhere and I cough, everybody's like leaves the room, and it could have been just that a fly flew in my throat. And I think though that we're much more oriented to it. Some places not. But I think that there is going to be it's going to be hard pressed to really shut down the way that we did before. And even if we don't, though, we have something, I think I mentioned this to you before, that we're calling PVSD. which is post-virus stress disorder.
Mhm.
And I don't care who you are and how much you think that this is either a hoax or it's not true. In the back of your mind is like, I'm not getting too close to that person. I'm not really shaking their hand. I'm not hugging and kissing if I don't know where they've been. I'm not going to be sharing food, right? Like the old days, hey, taste this. Here you go. Not happening anymore. So it's kind of a different world right now. And I think a lot of that does naturally stop foot traffic. But one of the things, Frank, that I think we have to say about 2020 is that there's something remarkable that happened this year. And I think it's all about the incredible amount of adaptation and I guess I would say resiliency, right? This ability, not only for companies, we talk about companies, clearly, no question about that. Snap your finger, they are now going and they're figuring out a way to do things online. They're figuring how to do takeout orders, like what happened with Chipotle, or Domino's Pizza for that matter, really ramped it up incredibly. And Burger King, et cetera. Chick-fil-A doesn't need anything because they have lines around the block no matter what they do. But you look at these companies making incredible amounts of money, realizing that, you know what? People will adapt, people will change, and they're very resilient. And people have learned to adapt. So now, instead of me worrying about stuff and running out to the store and buying all this stuff, I figure out what I need, how to get it. I can go to Amazon, I can go to this one online, I can go to that one online. I can work from home. I have now, most people probably have an office or a setup at home. They can work from home if they have to. So it's not this panic anymore, right? The panic is gone. It's kind of like during a war. If the first day you're in a city and you're getting bombed from overhead, probably it's going to be a lot different, your life, than 30 days, 60 days later, where there's still planes going over and all that shell shock is over, but you've learned to adapt and be resilient in that kind of environment. And that's where we are. We're in a war. And we've learned to live within that war. Companies have done the same, learned how to work on their profitability. And of course, with the help of the government providing, has really changed the way we do things. Will we ever go back? I don't know. Frank, you going to the gym or did you buy a Peloton?
I took the plunge and I bought a Peloton. Yes.
Right.
Which is a stock. I think I was saying, I think it's going to be a good short around the 80s and wherever it's, let's just say it's a lot higher than that. But I said, wait till the momentum to stop and never stop. But that goes to my next question, Andrew. So is it the Pelotons, the Zooms, the Teladoc Health? We may start to realize, especially when it comes to real estate. I just talked to one of my best friends whose family came over here 40 years ago and bought a bunch of houses in Queens, New York. And tons of garages and everything. And he told me, he said the value of real estate's going down tremendously. He said he knows, obviously he's tied into the real estate industry. He says people have left. They're leaving in droves. They're leaving like crazy. He's like, now about 15% of the people haven't paid him rent of all his tenants. But is this kind of like a permanent change? I mean, before you answer that, I'm gonna share an interesting stat. And this is from another researcher. I forgot who put it. I think it was Evercore, which did a survey of like the percentage of people that feel positive about going to theaters, about going to gyms, about going to restaurants and stuff, right? So I was really surprised that it was theaters. I mean, people are more scared today, right? And gyms are more scared today going to these two places than they were in May. So I mean, are we looking at permanent change here, which we're going to see in some industries, but this is still going to impact a lot of companies, positive and negative, right?
I mean, there's a lot of things you have to think about when it comes to people having this long-term concern if they've never had it. I mean, I talked to you about this yesterday, Frank, and it seems to me that either we all need to get it and somehow live through it as best as possible, or a vaccine comes has good efficacy and good results. Or we're going to be living in this fear for a long time, and it's understandable. I mean, I get it, obviously, and when you think about the theater, packing people in, and then people singing at you, and if you've ever sat close in the theater, you can see the spit coming right off of their lips the whole time. So that's obviously traveling through the air. You look at gyms, people sweating. And their bodily fluids all over the gym stuff. I don't care how much you clean that, is still a concern. And, certain restaurants and certain transportation and cruise lines, which was a petri dish for disease before this even was invented, this whole COVID thing, right? We had the norovirus. was a big issue, that you're washing your hands. And they got guys singing. Have you been on a cruise lately? You know, they got the guys singing, wash your hands, wash your hands. You know, they got guitarists and guys, as you're coming in to eat, they're singing with mariachi bands and all this stuff. I'm not kidding either. And is that serious? And so I think it's going to be a change, maybe for the better. I think I have traveled all over Asia. And one of the first things you notice when you go to Asia is a lot of people wear masks, because they know from a pollution standpoint, as well as the potential for disease, it's important to try to either stay safe or, I guess, not give it. Now, there's a lot of mask discussions out there that they work, they don't work, they work, they don't work. In Sweden, we could bring in all this other good stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't think they hurt. They can't hurt. And I would tell you that I think that other diseases are probably going to go down. Other airborne types of things will probably go down as we have a different level of hygiene, and watch where we go, watch what we do, watch what we eat. That could be a better thing in the long term if you think about it. But I do think there are a lot of industries that are pretty much sunk and that are not going to be able to come back. Malls, I think CBL went bankrupt this week. You have that as an issue. Major restaurant chains, small restaurants that rely on people in-house.
I mean, these restaurants, you probably know restaurants owners, business owners, bar owners, right? These people need to be operating at 85% to make ends meet. And they're so even though they're open, or they just reopened, and some of them at 75%, they're still below that threshold, which means it's creating even more emphasis, or creating more emphasis for that stimulus package to pass, because there are a lot. I have friends own gyms and bars. They are getting crushed. They had livings, and now they're in tons of debt. I mean, we're talking about companies. We'll get to the analysts in a second. And they don't model for 80% revenue declines in 6 months. Nobody does, right? It's like, hey, 15, 20%, right? Never that.
Yep.
Now you're coming back, and people are like, oh, well, it's open. They need to be open a lot more than that. And now that you're rolling this back, it's dangerous, but it just places greater emphasis on this stimulus plan, because look, we had Disney come out, and I just came from Disney. It's hard.
Yeah, you had a miserable time, right? Miserable.
It's hard to wear a mask outdoors the whole day at a park. We had sore throats. We saw people yelling at people when they took them off and they weren't supposed to, just even when they were eating, they were in the middle of the aisle, not on the side. It just really wasn't that good of a time. But I'm with you when it comes to masks. I think, listen, if I'm 75, you should be wearing a mask. And if I see a 75-year-old, I'm going to wear a mask, and, I'm wearing masks all the time indoors just to make them feel better. Because if they get it, they're at serious risk of COVID. Now, getting into the bars and the restaurants, and you talk about different industries, does it matter who wins to you right now in terms of how you could position your portfolio going forward? Or is it, like I say, gold and Bitcoin are great investments no matter who comes in, just the environment for that, essentially to spend more money, fine. But is it going to change your current allocation now? Say if all of a sudden, they announce Trump the winner, right, which would be a surprise right now. Would you be like, oh, wait, I got to switch things around? Or would you tell clients? Or is it kind of like, hey, I'm set up no matter who wins, because it's going to be split in terms of, the Senate and...
So yeah, we try to come in a little bit in advance of this. What's interesting is on our trading portfolio, which is a long-short strategy, the TDI managed growth strategy. Basically, we came into the last 2 months, at about a 27% overall equity allocation. And that wasn't just because we're like, okay, we're nervous. No, it's because when we ran the screens, when we ran the fundamentals, when we did all the work to get to that point, only a certain number, about 22 stocks, came through the screen that met the criteria, which is no different criteria than it was, let's say, 9 months ago when 60 names came through. So I'm like, oh, well, hey, wait a second. When that happens, it automatically puts up on our antennas, and we're like, okay, what's the rule? Well, the rule is you have this percentage of the portfolio based on these numbers, and therefore you invest that way. So we kind of sidestepped that last move lower, and we're not going to really put in a lot more emphasis into the market until we can find stocks that meet those criteria. On our other portfolios, which are more asset allocation oriented, our global allocations, we came in, unfortunately, we did have a slight, very slight slant towards value on the large cap. So we still have the growth side, but we had a little bit of a slant to the value, thinking that there would be some potential for a reversion trade, which never materialized over the last year. But still, when I look at my portfolio, the composition of it, it's holding up really well. I do think that emerging markets will do better. I think that the value of the U.S. equities are a little bit overdone. I think that the potential for outside US has some slight advantage, especially if in fact the dollar continues moving lower. If Biden comes in, I think that you can see better potential for inflation that gives us a trade in gold and silver, for example, possibly other commodities. Interest rates are going to stay low, it seems, forever and ever and ever and ever. So I think that housing and real estate is an interesting place to be. So we've set ourselves up pretty well. We'll probably do some tweaking after we get beyond, I would say, towards December, till we see who's actually in and what they actually put on the table, because who knows what that is. If they put a big stimulus package on the table that's enormous and it gets through, that's going to be really negative to the dollar. That will probably benefit some of the commodities, gold, precious metals, and the opportunity, depending on where we sit here with the yield curve, which definitely widened out over the last 2 or 3 weeks, that was really beneficial to the financials, will benefit the value side of the equation. Whether they're going to look to break up the big monopolies is another discussion. Whether they're going to bring on and be very big proponents of marijuana, for example, and we saw a couple of states get passed. I think recreational is 1 or 2. New Jersey, was it New Jersey? I think it was New Jersey that got it passed.
I know it was on the ballot for at least 2 or 3. Yep.
So we'll make some interim changes, but kind of we are set right now for a very highly valuated market that has the potential of teetering for all sorts of reasons, whether it's going to be a shutdown, whether it's going to be a pandemic that spikes, whether it's going to be people providing themselves a stay-at-home order, being more clearly away from anything big box, leaning more towards a lot of the digital advertising, so kind of playing that side of the equation. I think that obviously there's going to be a desire for Biden to possibly re-enter the Paris Accord, roll back some of that. Also, a lot of renewable energy. So you have some of the EVs, the solars, some of the companies that supply some of that. So you got to look at where there's going to be, but I try to be ahead of this, not reactive.
And do you have any names that you think are going to benefit? And again, we're passing earnings season where, like you said earlier, over 83%, I think it was, of companies that beat earnings. This earnings are still down for so many of these companies, 20% year over year, but the bar was so low that, it's going to be interesting. And we still have lots of companies to report over the next week, so especially small caps. But what are some of the names that you look at? If you could share a few, and I know it's hard.
So I still think I still think there's an opportunity in this, in the names like that relate to health but are virtual. So you heard of Livongo and you've heard of Teladoc, but Amwell, American Well, that's a company that's really interesting. AMWL, that's an IPO that recently happened, I don't know, 2 months ago or so. In today's market, it was up, last I saw it, 11% today. Obviously, everything is screaming higher. But if we are going to have a change in somewhere and there's going to be a difference in the attack from the Biden and the next administration, and if we do see the continuation of this pandemic, I think that would be something that is going to really be taken in by a lot of companies. So you have that name. There's some other names. I mean, like, for example, Terminex is a company we like. They do, they're obviously, they have couple different sides to this company, but basically they have some cleaning and sanitation, but also they've been doing really well. Who else do I like? I didn't make the list. Oh, let's see if I got something over here. I got a list. I got a big list here. Let's see if I like anything else I can give you from this list. That would be interesting. You have to look at like your guns and question if those are going to be something that's going to be good, because there's going to be a lot of potential backlash in this administration with the guns. Let me get some greenies here. That would be good. Some of the pot stocks. I mean, you can look at MJ. You can look at Tilray. I think those are interesting. Sally Mae is a name that we hold that I really do like. I think that's interesting. If you have the mortgages expanding as we've seen them for some time, defense names, well, they're always going to go, be funded pretty darn well. So I don't think there's an issue with that.
Recently.
Yes. But, again, that's because probably they thought Biden would come in and not do much. Some of your climate changes, you have, again, TAN is the solar ETF. I'll give you that as an example. You have the First Solars. We were just stung by a company. Solar Edge is the name of it, and we bought it a little bit below where it is now. Ramped up like 30%. Came out with earnings, beat the crap out of earnings. Although some of the revenue numbers weren't as good, and their outlook was pretty ugly. But this is kind of a company that's, I'll call it picks and shovels type of company involved in the solar space. And that could be interesting too. And then, the EVs are obviously, there's so many of them out there, some of the SPACs and all that is interesting to look at. I would consider for a long shot. Let me give you the long shot view. Okay. Two things. Planet Fitness, I'm still thinking, I don't have a position in this, but Planet Fitness, I just don't understand how they're going to survive. Okay.
Yeah.
But okay. It's getting to a point that is I think very shortable. Number one. Number two, I think if you want to do long shot kind of thing, look at the cruise lines. They're eventually going to be cruising again. I know a lot of people who are like, I'm ready to go. I'm like, oh, okay. But the cruise lines, I think, are interesting. They've been decimated. Norwegian, Royal Caribbean, Carnival, they all pushed out their cruising, I think, Royal till the end of this year. But when they do, and if they do start up, I mean, if you do, the CDC just cleared them for sailing. So I don't know how they did that, by the way, in the midst of all of this, but they did. There was some clearance there. But I think that you have an opportunity long-term in some of these. They have a lot of debt. They've done a lot of weird deals of selling some of their boats and all that, just like the planes and airlines sold like debt backed by their frequent flyer miles and debt backed by their runways and or their not the runways, the gangplanks. What do you call that thing that you attach to the plane, you walk through, the walkways, the breezeways, whatever those are called.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's a good bunch of names. I mean, I think Apple, I think Facebook's going to be in some trouble. I always think that, though. I'm not a big fan of Facebook. It just came on our list, actually. Facebook, we like Adobe. Am I giving you enough names here?
Yeah.
I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to stop right there just so I don't get myself in trouble with a lot more.
Yeah, I know that's true because everyone's going to highlight the losers and not the winners. You know how it goes. So
right, of course.
All right, Andrew, thank you. We spoke yesterday, and I just thought this would be great because there are media personalities. That there's so many personalities in terms of politics. But today it's hard when we're publishing on Wednesday. Sometimes I'll get some of the podcasts done on Tuesday or even an interview, depending on the guest, because we couldn't do an interview on Tuesday without knowing the results.
No.
I didn't know we still know the results, but everyone's really more busy than they are ever because everyone's trying to figure this out, especially on the political end or whatever, our end. But if someone wants to learn more about you...
Well, wait. Before we do that, can I just say something?
Mm-hmm.
Can I play you a clip of what analysts are saying? Did you hear the Tom Lee clip from CNBC yesterday or the day before about his prediction dependent on what happens with the election?
No.
So can I play that for you?
Yes, by the way. And he got pissed off at me. He was pissed at me. I asked him, I just said, listen, do you still think Bitcoin's going to 20,000? And he was like, why did you even bring that up for? What are you talking about? I never said that. I'm like, it's quoted on like 40.
I thought you said 25,000.
Whatever, it might have been 25,000, but he got mad and he's like, you read my research. I was like, actually, I don't read your research, but that's okay.
So listen to this. This is a 1 minute clip, okay?
Yeah.
And walk us through your 3 election outcomes and the potential market reaction you're anticipating.
Yes, we published a note this morning for our clients. First, I think the base case for markets, especially based on both prediction markets and betting, is a Biden win with a blue wave. I think that rally is roughly 10%,
10%
led by cyclical stocks, but some weakness in technology because of the specter of capital gain tax increases, as well as sort of a potential for increased regulation. Mm-hmm. And if Trump wins, that's a market surprise. We think the rally would actually be larger, 15 to 17%, because you're taking tax increases off the table, you're taking deregulation or regulation off the table, and I think you're taking the threat of lockdowns off the table. So I think tech rallies and cyclicals rally big. That's how you get to 15 to 17. And even if it's a contested election, I still think you get a 5 or 7% rally, because foremost, we're still going to have now the window open to do some stimulus. So that's going to, sort of ameliorate market concerns. The Fed likely does.
So in other words, this guy has every outcome and the market goes up, which he could be right about that. The markets are obviously primed and ready to go into this. But my point is, this is getting back to our discussion about analysts and betting odds and economists and polls. Mm-hmm. Just be careful who you listen to. I mean, yeah, the markets did go up today. Again, I think they were spring loaded to go up today anyway. Mm-hmm. But you look at what his base case was and what it was. None of the stuff is really playing out exactly that way. Just a general market rally. I'm sorry. Now, I just thought it was kind of funny to
I love
put that in there.
It's almost like if Apple sells 10 million phones, it's going to go through the roof on its first day. But if they sell 2 million phones, it's also going to go up. That's the biggest red flag, guys, as analysts. When people give you two situations, and if the opposite happens, it's good. It's going to go in the same direction anyway. It's very scary.
Right.
But
of course.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on. And really quick, I was just, if someone wants to get in touch with you, learn more about you, how can they do that?
Yeah. Sure. You can listen to the Disciplined Investor podcast. You can go over to the disciplinedinvestor.com, which is right there. What you're seeing right there, there's a list of our various podcasts. And you kind of scroll that up a little bit. You'll see kind of the different, no, the other way. Sorry. Scroll it down. I'm sorry.
I messed that up too, though.
So you can see there's different ways. We have the TDI Managed Growth Strategy. We have Investology, which is kind of a robo-esque advisor crafted, technology enhanced, very small minimums, $10,000. Also, we have our global allocations. There's a $500,000 minimum. You can see all the different things. And we even have plugins that we created through algorithms. #1 on TradeStation. So a lot of different things you can check out over on the disciplinedinvestor.com. The best way to get in touch with me right there, there's a little button on top that says Ask Andrew. You can see that, and you can kind of subscribe to the right of all the ways just to get there. So lots of good stuff on there.
No, this is good stuff. So one last thing before I go here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to surprise you on this, so let me bring this back.
Oh, yeah.
So, I wanted to ask you about this.
Not going to be like a baby picture of me or something, is it?
Worse, right here. And guys, again, we're doing audio, of course, but when I do see this right there, The Disciplined Investor, your first book. You know what? I found this book, and we first met. Man, we know each other 15 years, and you actually signed it for me. And we were cleaning up my house. I saw it. It's like, wow, this is cool. It was just going over the books, and you had the whole thing in there. But the mustache, I mean, you look like a
you like that?
porno star here, you know?
Yeah, look at that. Look at that handsome guy. It looks like I have a lot of makeup on or something there, too.
No, that's a
yeah, that's a little. I don't look that much different now, do I?
No.
Should I grow it back?
I love that mustache. Yeah, that's cool, man. You look good, though. I like it. I do.
Thanks.
That's awesome, man.
Thanks.
So,
there's a story behind that mustache.
No, I can imagine. But listen, buddy, I love you. Thank you so much for coming on. Again, I love the conversation we had. I just thought it'd be great for investors.
Awesome.
And yeah, that's what we're here for, right? To help people invest and make decisions. Hopefully we'll get a decision for the election soon, right, buddy?
Perfect. Keep up the great work.
All right, I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thanks.
Okay, guys, great stuff from Andrew. So much going on. I think it would be nice if there could be a winner declared. This way the country could just kind of unite, right? We're all sick of this garbage. It's just, but the way it's played out where you're saying, okay, one candidate, you thought they won pretty much when you went to bed last night, and now you're like, wait a minute, that didn't happen. Yeah, both parties claiming that basically they won, and we know that Trump's doing a little bit worse than Biden. Biden's saying, we believe we won. And Trump's like, I'm declaring myself the winner. I get it. I mean, I think everyone could expect that out of him. But the fact that when they do announce the winner, which I think personally is going to take months. They might say, well, Biden won, but Nevada is the key. Nevada is the key, guys, because if you're looking at Nevada, if he wins Nevada, he just needs Pennsylvania, because I really think he's going to win Georgia and North Carolina. He may lose those states. I'm just saying right now that's how it's playing out. That's why Nevada's such a big deal. If he loses Nevada, it's going to be next to impossible. I mean, then we're going to have a massive recount, because I don't know if you know what's going on in Pennsylvania right now. Like, all the conservative sites are claiming foul. It's... a lot of them got deleted off of Twitter, but there are videos going around even on just, non or, political sites of how, the votes weren't counted right. They didn't allow people in there. Again, you're going to hear this from both sides, right? This is the BS. And Philadelphia is going to, I mean, as of right now, it's 80%, I think 82% reported, and Trump still has a major lead. And I know that, they've placed great emphasis that, hey, all these votes that are going to come in for Biden is going to change. But again, that's going to open the door for them for recounts. You have Wisconsin where Trump said, hey, we want to recount there. Nevada's going to be close. Why Nevada stopped counting is, again, I have no idea. Why? Why don't we know the results from Nevada by now? It's insane. A lot of these places, they got to 50, 60%, and they stopped counting last night at 11 p.m. I mean, that's not good news, right? It's not good news for the markets. The only thing the reason why the market's going up is because it's going to be split. And that's important, right? We don't want crazy conservatives. We don't want crazy lefts, right? We don't want them to have control of everything because it's usually the worst time because you get sometimes radical policies on both sides. But that's one of the things that's favorable. Outside of that, it is pretty crazy right now. You're going to see tons of lawsuits come out. You're going to see the Supreme Court get involved. You're looking at North Carolina. They don't have to finish their recount until November 12th. November 12th. And Nevada came out today and said, oh, well, we're not going to have them by today. We're talking about tomorrow. We have to count. I mean, you know, for mail-in votes, if you're at home, I just don't understand why you can't mail them in have the date prior, 7 days before. This way you say, if you do it by this day, this way you have all those votes in, they could be counted, and then you're just going to the normal posters of people that go there, which are pretty easy to count. But the fact that we're having, and I understand if there's close races and stuff, that's fine. If it's close and you want to recount, that's okay, like we had in Florida. This is different. 82% only reporting right now for Pennsylvania. 70% for Nevada. Why is that? Why is that right now I'm sitting here and Wednesday afternoon and you don't have more of those votes counted? Which is crazy. But either way, and the way this is going to work, it's going to create a lot of chaos because no matter who wins, the other side's going to think it wasn't legit. And think about it. Say if you're a Republican right now and they come out and say Biden wins, how are you going to feel? Well, what happened? What's going on with this? How come they didn't get counted right? You can have a lot of people saying that. And if you're a Democrat and they announce Trump win, you're going to say the same thing. A lot of people are going to say the same thing. And that's going to create a lot of animosity, chaos, not to the point where, hopefully there's not death in the streets or anything, but it is going to create uncertainty for stocks where a lot of these companies, I mean, look, Biden's coming in saying we're going to be more conservative. We're seeing Democratic places close their, roll back. A lot of these options, that's not factored into GDP. That's pretty freaking scary. That's really scary. That's not factored into next quarter's GDP. It's supposed to get better and better and better and better and better. That's what we've been getting since March, right? April was a little bit better than March, and May was better and going better and better. Now we just reverse direction. First week-over-week decline in a lot of these economic indicators that show the opening of the economy. These are reports that I read in the sell side, so it's pretty crazy. But a lot going on right now. I don't think you have to adjust your portfolios. There's going to be winners and losers, but it is going to be interesting to see how this plays out and how long people are going to be okay with it in terms of a market perspective and stock perspective of saying, hey, I'm okay if this takes to January. I mean, you look at, what did it take, 6 weeks for Florida? That was one state, and that wasn't too difficult. I mean, you have 3-4 states at least. And I do think Biden is going to get Michigan and Wisconsin. I'm pretty sure of that. I don't know, though. But if he gets those two, now you have Georgia, North Carolina, then you have Pennsylvania, which is what's going to happen. Who knows? But it's Pennsylvania and Nevada, the two biggest things. But man, this is going to take a while. This is going to take a while to determine, and I don't think that's great for stocks. And it's funny because I want to say this is very, very important, guys. 2 weeks ago, I published a special report called The Third Option. It's funny at the time, but I wasn't kidding. So it's basically discussing exactly what we're seeing right now, where there's going to be massive recounts in several states, lots of legal action being taken. Again, we knew 2 weeks ago these guys were hiring 200, 300, 400 lawyers on each side preparing for this. They knew it. They saw it coming. Both sides. We're going to like to get Supreme Court involved. And again, we're declaring a winner officially could take months. And that was the third option. That was the third option. I'm just saying how crazy it could be and extremely chaotic, but I outlined in this report the best stocks and sectors to buy if Biden wins, if Trump wins, and I said, more importantly, here's the best way to profit from this third option. People are like, what's the third option? What is it? Nothing's going to happen. No, this is the third option. All this bullshit. This is the third option. This was on the table. This is what an NBC poll took, where I think it was 55 to 60% of the people in that poll did not expect a clear election winner or would not be satisfied with the results after the election. Most people believe this. Do I have a market that's going up? You're like, well, it's good. And we just heard, what Andrew and Tom Lee, saying, Tom Lee's been a bull forever, and he's been right. Market's been getting back to all-time highs. He's been right for the most part. Not during COVID. He said it was bullish, and a crash. But for the most part, he's been right. This report is absolutely free. It's on my website, CurzioResearch.com. Just go there, click it, read it, and you'll learn exactly the way to benefit from this, from chaos, from uncertainty. Okay, it's not about buying and selling stocks all the time where, okay, I got to be long, or I'm going to get out of the portfolio. With this specifically, I was talking about buying puts, protecting yourself, hedging yourself, where not only if you're hedging yourself, and this is what Money Flow Trader is all about. This is why I created this product. I've been in the markets 25 years. There's ups and downs. There's going to be times of uncertainty. And instead of just sitting there sometimes, it's scary. Yeah, markets usually come back, and they've come back over, 50, 70 years every time since S&P 500 has been created. But not all sectors and stocks come back. We see a lot of names that get destroyed, absolutely destroyed. So how do you take advantage of that? How do you hedge yourself? Well, in Money Flow Trader, you hedge yourself by buying a few put positions. You're only going to lose the money you put into each trade. And say if you take 10% of your portfolio and you do that, right? So you go short a couple stocks and sectors. Again, Ginny Terranova runs that newsletter. She's fantastic. She's doing amazing. Now, say if the market goes higher, all those things are going to expire worthless. That's okay because you're long the other 90% of your portfolio, right? That's okay. All right, I'll sacrifice 10% for that 90% is easily going to make up that 10% if the market goes higher. If the market comes down, these positions, you're not going to make 50, 75%. Just look at the gains. Ginny has 500% gains, 200% gains. The average gain out of her 15 winners is 90%. You could get thousands of percent gains from these things if the market tanks, which is going to be that 10% will be worth your entire 90% of the rest of your portfolio. This is what the experts do. This is what I'm trying to teach you what to do, right? It's nice to have someone come on here and again, marketable. Oh, just buy the markets. It's great. Or create this fear pack. No. In reality, you have ups and downs in the marketplace, and you want to be able to protect yourself. And people say, Frank, why do you use stops all the time? You know why I use stops? Yeah, sure. If I didn't use stops, then there's stocks that stop out and then go much higher. But you get one shot. Say if you have $100,000 and you're like, wow, I really love this stock. Or you're putting them in 3 different stocks and you don't have stops. And all those absolutely crash. Your money's gone. You don't get a second chance. You don't know where that stock's going to go. So say if it triggers a 25% stop loss, big deal. That's okay. Then the market completely crashes. Now you have capital on the sidelines, and now you can invest accordingly in a bunch of cheap stocks, right? That's how you invest. That's what I'm trying to teach you here. This is why our following is getting bigger and bigger. And yes, I talk politics sometimes because it's important. No matter who wins, it's going to be fine. We're going to be okay. Last night, it was amazing because you're seeing all this craziness. And I like 1:30 in the morning, like I always do, because I stay up late. But I just checked on my kids and saw my daughters, just sleeping comfortably. I'm like, man, is this really a big deal? I mean, yeah, there's going to be policies that change and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's about our families. We want to be smart. And there's a lot of emotions right now. And the media did a great job tapping into all of our emotions. I mean, being a Trump supporter and being called a racist. Come on, give me a fucking break. I mean, come on. I don't love the guy. I don't agree with all his policies. It's just a lot of things that Trump does is beneficial to me and my family, to my company, to hiring more people. That's it. I understand the Democratic side. I've always have. And I think just the Democrats understand the Republican side. When Clinton was elected, when Obama was elected, Republicans were like, holy shit. But right now, I mean, some of these policies that are on the table, it gets a little scary right now. And calling me a racist and it's just, you can't even say that you want to vote for Trump already. Like, people hate you. I mean, I have Democratic friends. Good. If Biden wins, I'll be the first to say, hey, man, good job. Congratulate you. And that's it. And then we'll invest accordingly. But just to see what's going on right now and the emotions behind it where, hey, if you're a Democrat, I have to hate you. Give me a break. I mean, come on. We all have our families. I mean, there's so many things that are much more important than these asshole politicians who really don't give a shit about us. They don't. They say they do. They care about power. So my job is to bring you the best ideas based on the policies that are going to exist for whoever wins. Again, right now it looks like it's Biden, but not definite. Just like Trump wasn't definite last night. But the Senate being taken over, that I think is very, very positive news for the markets. So the Democrats have a complete sweep. Even the Republicans have a clean. Usually the markets don't do that well. Usually. So let's see what happens going forward. But that report, the third option, is online. Take a look at it. And also, look, I never, ever do this. When I discount a product and I put a date on it, it's done. And I'm like, okay, that's it. but I give a shit about you. So if you're interested in Money Flow Trader, I'll put a special offer on our site. I'll discount it by what it was discounted the last time. I think it was 30%. Why am I doing this? Because it's something that I want you to learn about to protect yourself in your portfolio. And you need this right now because there's going to be a ton of uncertainty. And even when we announce a winner, there's still going to be a ton of uncertainty with COVID. Are we going to close down economies? I mentioned it to Andrew, right? It's pretty crazy. When we look at, hey, the states control what they want to do. Well, let me tell you something. If you're a Republican and the president's Republican, you better listen to that president if you want him to back you. Same with Democrats. If you want to have all that backing, you got to stick to party lines. And that could result in more areas in Democratic-controlled states dialing back a little bit, going from 80%, 70%, putting in curfews. The market is definitely not pricing that in. It's not pricing that in, especially given the stats on COVID. And let's see what happens with COVID, right? Because there's one thing that pisses me off is when you watch CNBC, you watch MSNBC, they act like you're going to freaking die. You're going to die if you go outside from COVID. It's not true. We have to protect. We know who to protect. I've been giving you the stats and the facts the whole entire time. You should be more informed than 99.9% of people when it comes to COVID. We've been right almost the whole entire time in terms of getting out, how China, it's crazy in China, how it's going to spread throughout the U.S., how most of these people aren't even prepared, and then going over the stats and saying, hey, now the stats are coming in after New York, because New York was crazy. They put all the people in nursing homes, and the infection death rate went up to over 10%, right? That's SARS. That's crazy. But then as it filtered out, we said, wait a minute, we got to protect our old people, over 70, the older people, and people with underlying conditions. Now we have a 0.6% fatality rate of COVID, which is nothing. My kids have been in school for 3 months. I'm seeing kids in schools for a long time. You're not seeing crazy. You're not seeing people outside hospitals. Hospitalizations are going up a little bit because sometimes COVID affects you a little bit differently and you need medicine. But if you're looking at the most important stat, it's the death rate in terms of percent of infection. And that continues to go lower and lower and lower, which is great because we know more about this disease. We have medicines, and hopefully, for everybody in the world, that we get a really, really good vaccine, because that would be a game changer. But there's going to be tons of uncertainty going forward. Definitely read my reports absolutely for free. It's on our website, third option, curzioresearch.com. And if you're interested in Money Flow Trader, I'll put it up for a week. Again, I'm hoping that people who did take advantage because of that deadline not going to get pissed, but I want to protect you. I want to show you how to invest properly. Okay? And if you think I'm full of shit, we'll offer, a money back guarantee on it or whatever we need to do to say, oh, it's trust me, every one of our products. I mean, I've fired 2 very high profile analysts, okay, that just didn't really have that good of a performance. And I made those changes, and it was tough. And if we look at the change of those 2 newsletters, where it's Money Flow Trader, where, man, Jeannie has been kicking ass. And if we look at crypto and our crypto intelligence newsletter, the performance in there has been absolutely amazing. Okay, so my job is, we're a publicly traded company now, right? From a CEO token. Okay, I'm not in this for a year. I'm not in this for 2 years. I've been doing this for 25 years. You could say my whole life, even with my dad doing it, my late dad for 25 years. I've been doing this for a very, very long time. I'm in it for the long term. How you build a long-term brand is doing right by your customers, by listening to them. So something like this is going to help you in a time that pretty much the market, no one's really talking about the uncertainty when it comes to stocks, and everyone just says the market's going to go up. Guys, you know what happens. I thought the market's going to go up because I didn't think there's any chance of us closing anything. It's different. We might be closing, again, rolling back everything. From 80% to 70% to 60%, it's going to be a nightmare. Now we're talking about all the cyclicals that were supposed to go up that got crushed, like airlines, casinos, travel-related stocks, all these things, right? Now look what's happening. Crazy, crazy stuff. Again, you can go to our website to find all this information out. Last thing here, if you get a chance, you probably listen to this on iTunes. We did our first video podcast. So you're going to see Andrew's beautiful face, my ugly face, but you're going to see me put up an interactive map. And you know what? I'm going to show you actually some of the things you could see. So, and if you're on iTunes, don't worry about it, but you can go to our YouTube page at Curzio Research, And here's some of the things that you can look forward to. So, if it's just the different camera views we have here. 1, 2, you saw 2 camera views with Andrew. We're going to have Daniel in here. We have the whole studio set up now. And then I could bring up my screen and really do everything I want on my screen as I'm talking. That's why I'm clicking states and it's interactive. And you've seen it turn blue or red. And, it increases the totals of Biden and Trump of how you get to 270. The research sites that I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to be bringing them up to show you. Right? I mean, the visual aspect is so amazing. That's why you look at a Joe Rogan podcast. A lot of people watch on YouTube. And it just provides so much more information, the visuals, and the fact that I could share so much of my research even more than just saying, hey, go to this site. Now you're going to see the site and you're going to see why I like it so much. And these sites are mostly going to be free for you to look at, just like what's up right now. Again, I could put up anything and bring up everything and just have different views and stuff. We have about 5 or 6 different camera views in here. We have lights across the board. I mean, we paid a lot of money for this studio. I'm excited. So if you get a chance, just take a look at it. We're going to cut these down in segments. We're going to have, the beginning part, which I usually have, my little monologue thing. And then we have my interview in the middle. And then we usually have, educational segment or whatever at the end. But all this is going to be on video going forward. And I want to get your feedback. So to view that, you can go to our Curzio Research YouTube page, and we're going to try to get this up as soon as possible. This is the first one, so we're going to get better at it. We're going to get quicker at it. I want to hear your feedback as always, but really, really cool stuff. And I just want to say thank you so much for all the support, for everything you guys do. And I promise you, I'm going to do everything I can to position you perfectly for no matter who wins the election, what sectors, what stocks. And one of the best ways to do that right now is by just protecting yourself just a little bit, because this isn't going to be we're not going to get results in a couple of days. There's no way. I mean, we're looking at weeks, if not months. That's how long it's going to take. I mean, you know how long it takes for the Supreme Court to hear things? You know how long it takes to bring something to the Supreme Court? I mean, again, it's going to be quicker, but still, it's you're looking at a scenario that doesn't look good in terms of, even if they say, hey, Joe Biden's the winner, Trump's going to fight it. If they say the same thing to Trump, Biden's going to fight it, and you're going to see these lawyers come out. They're going to go to the Supreme Court. It's going to be a shit show. And we know when that happens and that uncertainty, if you're a business, how do you project for the future? How do you offer guidance? And if you don't offer guidance, good luck. You got away with that in March and April and May because we threw $6.5 trillion at the problem. But while all this is going on, guys, remember, we're not going to get a stimulus plan while they're fighting here and go into all lawyer bullshit. We're not going to get a stimulus plan. And I'm very, very surprised the market is up right now with this uncertainty. Maybe by some chance we get a quick decision. They come out in a couple of days and say, hey, you know what? Whoever won and that's it. It's over. That would be very good. But in order to get a stimulus plan, this stuff has to end. I don't see it ending for a while. So I want you to protect yourselves just in the short term. Long term, COVID's going to go away. It's already going away. I know you see more cases. I know you're alarmed. Trust me, we're testing more than ever. There's more people into the economy. Of course, the numbers are going to go up, but the death rate continues to go down because we understand this virus. We understand who it impacts, who we have to protect. We know that hopefully the media will be reporting the real news on COVID and not the bullshit to keep people home, especially now this election is basically over and we don't have to worry about any more people voting. So thank you so much for listening. As always, really appreciate all your support. And I'll see you guys in 7 days. Take care.